Okay, so we got this figured out. Welcome on in, man. Episode 3, we're psyched. Again, Eric Singleton, Harvest Director and Creative Director at GrowGeneration. They have stores all across the country. Let's see here. Man, I'm trying to even think of where I want to start. I guess if we're going to get from the top, tell me about GrowGeneration. I mean, you have locations that we at GreenBroz don't have sales managers physically in like Oklahoma, Florida. So you're a great resource for us in terms of people that can go into your stores and learn about our machines and get that same kind of GreenBroz experience.
Yeah, that's really one of the main reasons I took the job at GrowGeneration. I apologize if anybody hears my dog bark in the background. He likes to go in and out throughout the day. Um, well, the main reason is I met Michael and Darren, the CEO and president, and they just really impressed me as leaders. And that's when I decided that this is where I wanted to be, because a store of their level is kind of moving this industry into the future a little faster, because a customer no longer has to rely on states like Colorado and California to get their grow supplies. Now, pretty much we're in almost every legal state where there's a medical or recreational license or a program going on. So it's, for me, it's just about the customer satisfaction. Is that we have a professional team, we have amazing commercial account manager team for the big cultivations, and yeah, we've got stores everywhere. So if you have a GreenBroz issue or you want to buy a GreenBroz, you don't have to fly to Colorado, make a down payment, and have it shipped to New Hampshire. You can just walk into a store. So yeah, it really comes down to we're just here for the customers, and I believe as of today we have 27 stores nationwide.
That's a lot. Not many people can compete with that kind of a number, man.
No, it's crazy. And when I started in February of last year, we had 15. So we're growing at an enormous
Wow.
rate. Definitely go pick up some GrowGen stock. It's gonna be nice to have in a few years. It's the sign is GRWG.
GRWG. You're one of the few, I imagine, grow stores that are public and being traded.
I don't know of many. So yeah.
That's awesome. So, what's your background in the space? I know you mentioned a year or so ago going and joining GrowGen, but I've known that you've been on the harvest side of the industry for a long time.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I just kind of fell into it. I took a job as a rental technician and specialist at a harvesting company that rented machines, and from that, it was just amazing how over like a 4 year span, became a professional on these products, because I was helping people 5 6 times a day with mechanical issues, workflow issues, picking the best machine for their system, picking the best style for their harvest. I mean, it was really that's how I kind of got all my expertise. I would say I'm indirectly responsible for over 1 million pounds in production, at least in Colorado. So, and the one thing I like to offer to all my customers that seems to be a little lacking in the industry is I'm available 24/7 with professional, courteous, and prompt solutions. That's hit or miss in the cannabis industry sometimes. You don't always get the best customer service, but that's why I partnered up with GrowGen, because we had a very similar mindset as to what needed to take place in the future.
And I know we at GreenBroz have had a relationship with you for years and years, especially Aaron, our Colorado sales director. And so we can definitely vouch for that level of customer service. And I mean, at GreenBroz, that's really important for us. So we don't partner with people that don't offer that.
Well, Tim, you're one of 5 people I play golf with, so you are a gentleman and a scholar. You're all good people there. If Aaron
And
could swing a golf club, I'd play with him, but
Yeah, just decent enough of a golfer to continue to play with. I like that. Now, you've seen the evolution of dry trimming machines in the industry, along with a lot of other technology. And now we'll talk about some of that other technology in just a second. Um, when you started till now, I know a lot of people you've come across have been really hesitant to embrace a mechanical trimmer overall, regardless of brand. So could you tell me kind of how you've seen that stigma change from when you first started to now, the quality of machines that you feel comfortable recommending to people?
yeah. Well, I mean, you touched on the big thing there is the quality of the machines has greatly increased. All the major manufacturers, you guys especially, have listened to our feedback. I like to call it feedback. Sometimes I feel like I'm just griping all the time. But yeah, you guys have always, I mean, I've always seen an evolution from year to year and improvement on the machine. So that makes a big difference. But I think the bigger difference is that customers are, for one, becoming more educated because, you know, putting out good content, having people available to do demos, and, you know, having stores where you can go in and talk to an educated staff member. That's huge because as this industry transitioned from a black market to a, you know, regulated market, there was a lot of there was a way things were done for so long, and that doesn't quite compute with mass production and, you know, supplying like the entire state of Colorado with daily retail supplies. So that's where that transition was kind of tough. But I think everybody that's really serious about the business now is understanding that, you know, Henry Ford didn't build his cars by hand. Well, he did it first, but now they have machines and they're producing a lot more. You just can't meet the demand without that automation. That's kind of crucial.
Okay, so getting into other things, like I definitely want to talk a lot about harvest. I guess the difference between a wet harvest and a dry harvest, that, you know, 10 years ago, the idea of a dry harvest wasn't really even on the table. That conversation has come a long way, especially with machines, you know, like GreenBroz' entire line of harvest equipment is really designed for a dry harvest. I mean, machines like the sorter that can, you know, sort 1.5 to 2 pounds per minute can be used on wet product or dry product. It doesn't matter. The Canogen can be used on wet product or dry product. It really doesn't matter. But really the ethos of GreenBroz is a dry harvesting company. And really they were stewards of the movement overall. A lot of people say that in the industry. Can you talk about some of the differences in terms of the wet harvest versus the dry harvest and kind of the end product you would expect from each style?
Yeah, so I mean, the wet harvest, the way I always, I'm a former cook for anybody that doesn't know my background. I always liken the two methods to hot cooking and baking. So wet trimming is like your hot cooking. You can make adjustments on the fly. It's a quick process. From the time the product goes in the pan to the time it's finished for the customer is really quick. And you can make mistakes along the way and correct them. Dry trimming is much more like baking, where there is a set algorithm, there's a set recipe, and it has to be followed to the letter. But what you get out of that is a very precise product. So that's the big differences between the two is, you know, wet's fast and easy, and dry is a little bit longer and a little bit more of a particular process, but you get a better result out of it. And I think the main reason for that is, and I could be speaking incorrectly here because I am not a scientist, but the plant releases a enzyme or molecule called hexanol when it's stressed, and cutting it in, you know, at a rapid rate can cause stress. And that's often the hay smell that people think they get from a wet trim. And what happens is when you do a wet trim is if you don't cure it properly, that hexanol stays very present in the flour. Whereas if you dry trim, you have to follow the process to get the proper trim. So by following that proper process, you kind of avoid that hexanol issue. And I mean, I always loved it when I was renting a GreenBroz because I could tell how good of a product somebody grew. And I'm a big fan of anything with a citrus tone to it. And when you open up a GreenBroz, you can smell the terpene profile of that flower like very clearly. And I would always, you know, be like, "Hey, you growing some tangy? Do you have any extra tangy? 'Cause this smells great." So I mean, that's the big difference. I mean, I think somebody that really wants, well, first off, you have to have good product. You have to have a good facility. You have to have a good dry room or a cure room, so you can regulate the temperature and, you know, get the product right to that 5.5, 8.5% window so that you can trim properly for the GreenBroz. And that just, I mean, that's going to give you such an amazing product. But you've got to have all those things in place and do everything right and grow good products. I don't mean to be blunt, but GreenBroz aren't turd polishers, so you can't put in a bad product and expect a good product out. You've got to do your side on the cultivation and, you know, grow good flower first. And in fact, give me just a second, I'll show you a result of one of my favorite strains trimmed through a GreenBroz.
So man,
notice this is a green crack, and all of your natural flower profile is still there. And I wish you could smell through Instagram because this is the most wonderful smelling flower in the yeah.
Scratch and sniff. Yeah, that's one of the big sales with GreenBroz is the ability to maintain foxtails and the natural curves of the flower rather than it coming out as a uniform kind of golf ball-y shape.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's by far, especially with the zero drop design, the most gentle machine on the market. And one thing I've noticed of a lot of facilities that have GreenBroz in place is when you go into those facilities, they're very organized. They're very clean. All the staff are very meticulous individuals, and it's a very quiet workplace. So I've definitely noticed that, there's not a direct correlation between those two, but that tends to be the trend of a GreenBroz customer is like they're very, it's a very clean professional cultivation. So.
You mentioned the science behind it and the physiological changes that happen between the dry and wet process. If people are listening now or they listen on the archive later, next week we're going to have Keone Gutierrez, our Oregon sales manager for GreenBroz, who actually went to college for this stuff. He's an expert in the botany side of the plant and what happens to the plant in a different cycle between wet and dry. He's going to break down what's actually scientifically happening, which is going to be really cool information to share with our audience because it's a part of the story that I think we're both trying to tell right now that I think can only use more supplemental information to educate people so they know if you go this process, here's what's going to happen. If you go this process, here's what's going to happen. But you're exactly right, man. The artisanal and kind of the craft factor in a lot of the ways, a lot of the reasons that people choose GreenBroz trimmers. That's one of the reasons we've partnered with the Grow Off competition. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah, we're actually a primary sponsor for them.
Very nice. So we've come on with Boveda as a sponsor this year. So we're going to be sponsoring the California, the Washington, Michigan. I'm trying to think Colorado, Massachusetts events. I think the clone pickup for California is in late April, early May. For those of you who don't know, the Grow Off is 50 growers in a state. They all come and pick up the same clone, the same genetics, and then they go through the growth cycle, and they all produce the same plant, and then that result gets judged to see who's the ultimate grower. But we are one of the main sponsors with Boveda because we've aligned ourselves with the fact that the end product, that artisanal craft finish, really is what we both identify with, and saving those terpenes, like Eric mentioned, that you smell in the machine is such an important process to all of that.
I want to be clear because I have to be the professional and tell everybody both sides of the story. I don't want to criminalize or make wet trimming seem like a bad, because there's some people that can't do a dry trim, especially like in big states that are doing acres of hemp. They just, you don't have a football size field so you can get a really good result from wet trimming. But my point was that a lot of the times when people do a wet trim, they're in a rush and they rush the rest of the process. So you see those consequences. But at the end of the day, you can call me right now on my phone, 864-314-1443, and I will tell you that, dry trimming is always going to give you the best result. That is the most scientific, slow, methodical process to get, top quality, high shelf product. So,
and that's one of the things I want to point out also is that we're not bringing in Eric to only talk about GreenBroz and prop us up and make us sound like we're awesome. What I love about Eric is we are, but he doesn't work for GreenBroz. He works for GrowGeneration, and they sell everything. So if you contact Eric, he's going to talk to you about your grow. He's going to tell you what machines that they offer that are going to fit into what you want to do. And if he wants to change part of what you want to do to streamline your process, doesn't matter what machine it is, you'll get that honest feedback from Eric. So we definitely encourage, our machinery speaks for itself. And it's kind of like the Pepsi, Coke, or the old adage that you can't please everybody. Not everyone is going to be utilizing a GreenBroz machine in their harvest. Exactly. But there are certain situations where it 100% makes more sense to use one machine or the other, and Eric is a perfect guy that will tell you all about that. So definitely hit him up, or hit up GrowGeneration too, and they'll send you to Eric or one of their experts. Now, that being said, I do want to talk about the Model M trimmer because it's a newer release for GreenBroz, and it was really kind of a machine that wasn't entirely a redesign, but they did a lot of things to kind of upgrade and change it. What's your experience been like with the Model M dry trimmer?
Just to be honest with you, Tim, that machine to me especially compared to like the earlier 420 models. It is damn near perfect. It's everything that I would call up Aaron at 9 o'clock at night and be like, you gotta change this, you gotta change this, I can't clean it because of this. And I can tell that feedback, went directly to the engineers, because that machine, for one, is extremely cleanable. So you can break it down in a few minutes. I've actually taken one to a car wash and just sprayed it down in between demos. And so, yeah, the breakdown and the cleanability, is just huge. The stainless steel and the surgical steel, is it food grade? I think it's
anything that touches the flower is surgical grade.
Yeah, I always want to say surgical, but I'm pretty sure it's food grade, but yeah, it's surgical.
We're precise like that. We're surgical, man.
With a scalpel. So yeah, all of those things are what this industry really needs. Everything needs to move to a more GMP, FDA regulated kind of. Coming from a background in the kitchen world, like, you couldn't have a wooden cutting board, and you couldn't have a watch with crevices on it for meat to get stuck in and fall out into a salad later on when you're making a salad for somebody. So those things are all in place because you're ingesting these products, whether it be through inhalation or actually like through edibles or tinctures. So anything that helps us stay more sanitary, more clean, more efficient, I'm a huge fan of.
Again, guys, we're talking with Eric Singleton, the Harvest Director and Creative Director at GrowGeneration. If you have any questions, go ahead and hit the little button on the bottom. Any questions about harvest best practices, or do you have a situation that you can't figure out in your grow, anything like that, hit us up, ask a question, and we'll get that answered. Now, to talk more about GreenBroz, because that's why we're here, more than just dry trimming. I know when you started working with GreenBroz, 4 or 5 years ago, it was the 215, the 420 trimmer, and that was about it in terms of tools that GreenBroz had onto the market. The Alchemist was shortly after that, but since then you've seen products like the sorter come out. I'll go on to other machines, but when the sorter came out, that's got to be a bottleneck that this machine was designed to solve, right?
Yeah, and it's really funny because I had a lot of clients when I first told them, like, hey, there's this really cool sorter. They're like, what do I need to sort it for? But it's because they didn't understand the proper process. And now that people are, becoming automated and this industry is really growing, I'm seeing sorters in every facility, and they're super important. I even have like a little tip trick that, I know GreenBroz doesn't necessarily always recommend, but I like to sort before I go in the machine, because that way everything that's in the machine is of an equal size and therefore requires an equal amount of time. Because I always give the analogy, I'm a little 130-pound runner, and if I go play contact football with a 250-pound linebacker, I'm not going to last as long as he is. And that's because, just body mass. So I like to use it even prior to packaging. But yeah, especially after you trim, that machine is absolutely crucial for organization. Me, my car is not the cleanest, but my golf bag's always in the exact same position, and all my clubs are in the same slot. Organization is key to production. So,
and that's a great point you mentioned. We do absolutely at GreenBroz encourage people to sort before and or after, wherever it works in your process. But you're right, man. If you sort into the sorter can do 7+ sizes. All user determines depending on what you want your product to be. People can create products, first of all, by sorting into those different sizes. You sort the tinies, the smalls, the little shake out at the beginning. That can be sent to pre-rolls or sent to extraction. Sorting really comes into play when you talk about loading into the precision batcher, being able to load specific sizes and know that, hey, I need to throw in some 1.5 gram pieces, some mediums, some smalls, that kind of a thing. But if you can sort before you trim, we've done practices with this, and you can literally dial in within a matter of seconds what that run is going to take, knowing what size of that flower. And you talk about efficiency, that's streamlining your process right there.
And that's the number one tip I could give anybody for listening, and that's one of the number one things I say with anytime I sell somebody a new machine. Because when I sell them a new machine, typically I would go to the facility, but recently I've been doing FaceTime consults. I tell them, like, hey, like, go to Rite Aid, buy a little journal, and start keeping a recipe book. Like, hey, green crack, at this moisture level runs for this long. And then, if you do it by size, you can start factoring in that variable as well. And if you do that, pretty quickly you'll accrue a data bank to pull from that makes trimming so efficient that it's almost mindless.
And not to give too much away, but there may or may not be some product developments on the GreenBroz side that will maybe hit the market in 2020 that might encapsulate some of this data into the machine.
That would be theoretically pretty neat if hypothetically that was going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, it may or may not. Who knows? I don't know what I'm allowed to give away and what I'm allowed to. I may have said too much already.
He leaked it, Colin. You saw where it came from.
I'm gonna have to burn this part of the episode for sure. So we also seen machines, like the Canogen Destemmer, the Alchemist Trichome Extractor. GreenBroz has partnered with our premier partners at Green Vault Systems on the Precision Batcher, which is the absolute finest of batching technology in the industry. If you want to learn more about that, go to some of our previous episodes where we talked about a difference between a precision batcher and a multi-head weigher. That was a really cool comparison. We brought in a guy who had run both machines at a really well-known operation out in California, and he gave you the exact skinny that you needed to make that decision. But you look at GreenBroz as a whole, Eric, and they really are, I don't want to have you... My goal here is not to have you homer for GreenBroz.
Because I love represent everyone.
You're awesome. And
yeah.
Just so everybody out there on Instagram knows, I'm a pretty, snooty person when it comes to who I associate myself with. I have very high standards. And, I mean, on an individual level and from a corporate level, your company meets all of those standards. I mean, you're a professional company. You're honest with your customers. You make a good machine. You back it up. I mean, I have no problem. Now, there's only a few, maybe one other vendor I would speak that highly of, or manufacturer, but I have no problem, telling the truth about you guys. You're awesome.
So you look at other machines that GreenBroz has put out, and I guess it's just nuts, the array. So GreenBroz is looking to get to that end-to-end harvest solution for the customer, where basically they're tackling every specific angle of this harvest process. Now, no one else is doing that, right?
Not that I've seen, not at the scale that you guys are doing it, because you're taking it all the way from, let's say we're doing the sorter at the beginning of the process, all the way from the sorter to the packaging. So, I mean, and even, kind of dipping into the extraction side with the Alchemist. So no, I especially with your new conveyors that I saw at MJ Biz. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about those yet.
Oh yeah, they're for sale. We're selling them.
Sweet.
They're linking up with our sorter, the Model M. We have the Precision Grinder coming out soon. Have you seen that machine?
I'm really excited to see that machine. I've seen the 3D rendering of it. I haven't. I'm excited. I keep imagining this like crazy transformer like gear box that you can like throw a log into and like come out with sawdust. So I'm super excited to see that, because it's that's one of the biggest things I've had people asking for, is something that helps them, like people that are doing pre-rolls or even doing extraction. Like that consistency, again, back to baking, gives you a more consistent product. So
yeah. Right now, when you talk about grinding, and this is a total tangent, but I wanted to make the comparison between the two machines. The main machines on the market for grinding are kind of like a whirlwind that kind of spin around and then stop, and you're left with the ground product. Yes, but there's no decision in the uniformity of that. Now, what GreenBroz is doing with the precision grinder, and I don't know if people listening have heard this before. I don't know if you've heard this before, but there are... You know those machines that destroy metal, and they kind of go like this, and then you throw the metal in? So that's basically what it does, but GreenBroz is going to be able to offer a variety of different sets customized to each grow. So you're going to be able to define the size of the product that you need for your product, for your pre-roll. And GreenBroz is going to be able to develop, or not develop, it'll be already developed, but specifically put in blades or crushers, or I don't know what the final wording is, that will teeth. There we go. I think it is teeth. I think they're coming up with a cool name for it. But those teeth will be able to produce that exact size consistently at a serious volume, to where you can put a conveyor going into that machine and you see nothing but a waterfall of perfectly sized little broken down bits coming out. So it's going to be nuts, man. I'm excited for it too.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see it, and it's exactly what I thought it might look like. I was imagining like the car crushers, which by the way, don't like, I would imagine we should probably tell everybody, don't see what you can crush in it. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. There's going to be a lot of safety involved. I think, honestly, that machine might have already hit the market had this pandemic not happened. I know GreenBroz is the exclusive manufacturer of this PPE remediator machine that they're trying to get out to hospitals and stuff like that, which is actually a super cool machine. They've partnered with Scott's Rotary Seals for the seals and Garden Clean's chlorine dioxide, and it's a really interesting concept that can be actually on the floor in the hotel, or not the hotel, in the hospital on a floor, whereas right now the main option is down in the parking lot in this big storage container. So you got to take all your PPE through the hospital and you got to get it outside, sterilize it over a 24-hour period, bring it back in. This machine is, in the room next to where you need it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool of you guys to do that. I mean, I'm really excited about the changes we might see to our culture from this pandemic, and everybody kind of working together. And capitalism has its points, but there's times where we need to kind of put the competition aside and work for the greater good. And that's really awesome. You guys are kind of setting that example right now. So. And
this machine, I think, could potentially directly correlate into the cannabis space too, with the shortages of PPE, specifically, in Canada, where they need to wear full face body masks and suits. Who knows when that might happen in the U.S. and different states. If it does, you're going to have companies going through tons and tons of PPE that they'd like to probably reuse. So who knows? You might see these machines in grow operations soon, where they need sterile equipment to be able to operate more consistently.
That's awesome. That's a really cool little transition.
Now, tell me if you would, as I awkwardly laugh into the microphone, tell me if you would more about GrowGeneration. I know we've talked about a lot of stuff with GreenBroz. What sort of clientele are you guys bringing into your stores? What level is it for the beginner? Is it for the large commercial guys? Who's coming in?
It's really the full spectrum. We don't discriminate, nor do we isolate any one demographic. So, for instance, I'm talking to a gentleman this morning that's, just a little small home grow operation here in Colorado, and just wanted to automate his small little harvest, so he didn't have to bring friends over to the house to do his hand trimming. And we have our commercial account managers that are handling, enormous football-sized field grows all across the state. So, we're everything from the hobbyist to the biggest companies in the country. So.
Just a couple more questions with Eric Singleton, Harvest Director and Creative Director at GrowGeneration. Hit that little question box on the bottom if you have any. I love that I'm able to get through so many questions that I have right now. One thing we haven't covered so far is overall kind of best practices for the harvest process. Now, how have you seen that evolve over the last 5 years or so, from when not only machines and automation were just starting to get into these grows, but now where it seems like if you haven't streamlined your process, you're just not able to compete?
No, you're not. And you're certainly not able to put out a quality enough product to compete. I would say the biggest difference I've seen is people are no longer cutting their flower down and throwing it into a Febreze lined trash bag. Now they have, completely environmentally controlled cure rooms. They've got conveyor systems. They've got staff in a clean room that's specifically designed for harvesting versus just throwing down a tarp and, running the machine in the garage. It's really just moved from a very professional level. And I can see a lot of customers that I know when I first started coaching people on dry trimming, they were very reluctant to all the changes they would have to make to their process. But I see now that they're a little bit more open to that, because everybody moves with the masses, and when you go down to a clinic or a Native Roots or any of the big or boutique grows here in Colorado, and you see this awesome product on the shelf, you're like, oh well, how do I get that? How did they do it? And now that the bigger companies are setting the example, like the smaller companies are kind of following along. So that's the biggest thing I've seen, is people taking the time to do all the individual steps right and having individual rooms set aside. And harvesting, in my mind, and this is still the case, it's the bane of my existence, most people think of me about 2 weeks too late. the harvest room should be considered before you ever put a plant in the ground. Like, it should be at the top of your mind, because that is the bottleneck. You can grow the best flower in the world, but if you can't get it out to the retail shelves, what good is it? You know, it would be like Nike coming out with a new Jordan, but not having like a spot on the assembly line for it. And then the day of production, they're like, I need a spot on the assembly line now. And you know, a lot of people, especially in harvest season, I mean, if anybody's listening, please, when it comes to harvest season, if you don't already have a machine, you need to start looking at one in June, because I mean, that is Macy's at Christmas for harvesting equipment, and you have to be prepared, or else it'll just be a bigger bottleneck. So that's, I mean, I would say of all the things, that's the biggest difference, is people kind of thinking of harvesting first and not 2 months late.
Having spent years in the warehouse at GreenBroz and going through harvest seasons there, I can tell you firsthand exactly that you're right. Going through like that busy like September, October, November, where people are like, I need a machine tomorrow. And we're like, so do you and 30 other people. It's going to be tough, but we'll get it there. And oftentimes we were able to make it happen. But so what kind of low-hanging fruit, I guess, are we talking about in terms of if someone's considering streamlining or automating part of their harvest, what are the first parts that they absolutely have to consider and dial in before anything else?
Well, first and foremost, you got to grow good products. So it needs to have a good profile. It needs to be, I grade product on a scale of A to D based on its density by volume or density by weight. So the denser it is, the better it's going to do, because the trimmer pushes against the profile of that flower. I would say 60% of the bad feedback I get from machines, I later find out when I get a picture of the flower that it's not very good flower that they're running through in the first place. So it, you know, obviously isn't going to look good when it comes out. So that's first and foremost. If you don't feel like you're getting good density, my team at GrowGeneration, and I'm, pardon my language, not bullshitting here, we have some of the top growers in the country. Our commercial account manager team, every one of those guys could go be a head cultivator somewhere, guys and gals. They are absolutely brilliant, and they can help you get that density you need. The next thing I would say is having a good team. I truly feel, and it depends on the size of the cultivation, but a team of 5 to 10 really well-trained individuals with good work ethic can really, I mean, that's crucial, because the workflow is only as good as the humans involved. And coming from a culinary background, I'm a little bit more harsh when I talk about my requirements for workspace. I mean, I don't think there should be talking. I think everybody should have their head down, and I think you should be moving as fast as humanly possible. To give you an idea, and I told this story at a few presentations I've done, I used to work at a restaurant, and we had a quail dinner. And our sous chef was in charge of like deboning 250 quail. And I don't know if anybody's ever worked with quail, but they're tiny and their bones are small. So it's a very like meticulous process. So for days, that's all he did. And at our 3 o'clock meeting, my junior sous chef kind of made a joke, and he said, "Hey, what do you think about when you're back there all day, like deboning those quail?" It's, we're expecting some kind of like funny answer, like, "Oh, I think about this and I think about that." And he looked at us really serious, and he was like, "I'm thinking about how to do my job faster." And that's the mentality that I see lacking in the production side of the cannabis industry. It's, the faster you work, the better. So that's number 2, is having a good work team that, has a good work ethic and a good sense of urgency. And they're not milking the clock. And then on top of that, you got to have a great machine, and you need to know the proper procedures to run it. So you've got to have a Model M, if you're, a little small home grow, maybe like a 215. And you need to talk to me and talk to the team at GreenBroz to make sure you're doing everything right. So that's the number one thing.
Especially out of the gate, if you can get the right process going out of the gate, as opposed to getting towards the end of your grow and not having a plan, oh man, immensely easier if you can plan for the end rather than have no plan at the end.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Proper planning. Prior planning prevents piss poor performance. There we go. That's a tough. I always mess that up.
That's a good one. I'm not going to even attempt to do it. Well, Eric, this has been killer, man. We're very appreciative of your time, and we definitely want to get you back in here. I have a couple questions I didn't get to, but we're already past a half hour on this. So I want to make sure we have it tight enough to where we get out a lot of good information, but not loose enough to where we cover everything. So I want to get you back on the show. Okay, so
anytime, Tim, I'm always happy. And as far as I can tell, Fox Hollow was open yesterday, so we need to get out and play some golf, man.
Dude, I've been busy, man, but I got to get out. As you can see, I haven't seen the sun in a little bit of time.
I'm pretty sure I forgot how to swing a golf club, so
Yeah.
it'll be a laughing experience.
I don't like, are ranges even open? Can you even warm up?
Strange times.
Yeah, after months off the tee box, just walking up and trying to hit a driver with no warm-ups, I feel like that's where my life is going to be. It's not going to be good, but...
Oh,
It'd
well.
be nice to be outside and see it, but
It'll be nice.
everybody watching, come by one of our stores, talk to our team. Definitely, grab some stock. It's an amazing company, and we are in our infancy as to what you're going to see over the next 10 years. I mean, I don't want to mention any big hardware supply stores because I'm not sure if I'm supposed to, but I mean, we are going to be the big hardware supply store of the GrowGeneration.
Like that big orange one? You might be that big orange one?
I'm thinking orange.
There's a blue one, too. I live closer to a blue one, so it's mine, but
the blue one.
I go to the orange one every once in a while.
Our Tulsa 2 location, I mean, we have a video on our YouTube page. Go check it out. It is another step forward in the hydro store layout. I mean, it's a real store. The aisles are 30 feet tall. It's huge. We can supply a truckload of whatever you need.
Definitely go check out GrowGeneration on YouTube. I mean, you guys have covered how to clean our 215. You've covered the Model M. You've covered a lot of stuff out
We
there.
need to do a sorter video.
Yes, absolutely. You're out here in Colorado, man. We got to get you out to the clinic and get you on that sorter and checking it out and all that stuff. And there's a new HDMI. There's a new touchscreen pad that goes on that machine that lets you control the speed a lot better of the bands and the conveyor. Oh, dude, it's nuts. It's a crazy step up in technology for that machine. There's a new HDMI on the Model M too. But anyways, we can save that for next one maybe. Maybe next time we do this live at the clinic.
I'm cool with that. And everybody look for a sorter video here shortly.
Sounds good. Well, Eric, thank you so much, guys. Don't forget, we'll keep this live on our Instagram for the next 24 hours, and then we'll be editing it shortly, adding it to our Vimeo, YouTube, and website, so it'll live in infamy forever, and whenever you want to see Eric's beautiful face, you can jump on and do that. But that's going to do it for us this afternoon. Stay tuned next week when we talk with Keone Gutierrez, our Oregon sales manager and botany expert. He's going to be breaking down the physiological things that happen in the plant when you dry harvest. It's going to be a really cool show.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. I'm looking forward to that.
You better tune in, man. You got to ask a question or two.
There. Yeah, no, I'm gonna bombard you guys with questions.
Sounds good, man. All right, everybody. Have a good one. We'll see you next week.
Hey, Tim. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.